Hey, what's up everyone? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Travis and welcome back to another video. Now today we are going to be answering a subscriber question again because I literally just recorded this with no audio, like 7 minutes, no audio. It was a pretty good video too, so whatever. Anyways, so today we're going to be answering a subscriber question, or better yet, a request on some tips and tricks and some food for thought when it comes to moving a saltwater aquarium from one house to another or an apartment to another. And since I've done this a couple times myself and I've helped many clients over the years, and you guys have hit me up several times via email, so I feel like I have some kind of info to put towards this and some food for thought, and hopefully I can help you out. So with that, the first thing you want to think about when it comes to moving your aquarium is a temporary setup. Now, when I moved way back in the day, I didn't do this, but I wasn't as invested in the hobby as I am now. And I would say if you have a decent amount of money into the hobby, you should focus on setting up a temporary setup or system at the new house, apartment, or wherever. Now, regardless of the distance, I don't care if you're traveling across the country or just traveling across the street, you should attempt, if you can, set up a temporary system. This allows you to get stable water parameters, temperature, all that stuff, salinity, and have a nice, safe environment, not only for your fish, but for the corals that you plan on bringing over. It's just gonna make things a lot easier. That way you can focus on moving the main display, setting it up, running all your cable management, and doing everything the way you want it to without the pressure of fish in a bin suffocating. It's just the way it is. It's going to make things a lot easier, and you can take your time with the temporary setup. I did that here for the 300, and it worked out very, very well because, you know, we had a bunch of equipment coming in from custom aquariums, Geo's Reef, all that kind of stuff, and I had to like time it all together, and it just didn't work out that way. So I had to set up a couple low boys, which I broke a couple of them. We'll talk about that here in a second, but I set up that temporary system there with the big refugium. It was really nice. The fish were happy. The coral that I did decide to bring over with me that I didn't sell was happy, and I had basically no DOA. I had no fish die during the process, and it worked out pretty good. So having a temporary setup, this could be anything. It could be low boys like I mentioned. Now with that, low boys break pretty easily. So if you can find something else, like maybe even just drilling a tub or finding a little bit stronger tank, I recommend that. With me during the moving process, yeah, I broke 2 or 3 low boys. I cracked one, wasn't officially broke, but I cracked one, and then I broke 2 of them on the way over. So mainly because I was doing this solo, which we'll talk about here in a second as well. Try not to do that. But either way, find yourself a tank, tub, whatever, make a system out of it, get it stable, transfer your coral and your fish over to that, and then you can worry about the setup, just in general, right? So temporary setup, good plan, good to go. Now, let's talk about moving livestock. Coral first. The only really requirement coral needs to move is to have stable temperature. Outside of that, they can sit in a bag for a while, usually 24 hours. They're fine. I've had coral sit in the bag during transit for 2 days and still be fine. It wasn't happy, but it survived as long as temperature stays relatively stable. It doesn't get too cold, doesn't get too hot, vice versa, right? So having your coral in a brute trash can or whatever you have during the moving process, as long as the temperature is stable, you're going to be good to go. Now, along the lines of coral, I recommend, and this is just because financially, all the money and time we put into growing a colony this big, you don't want to transfer a colony this big. Frag that thing up, take like 10 or 15 frags with you to the new setup, sell everything else off beforehand. This is where planning really plays a role into moving your setup. Sell all that stuff off, because not only you're going to make a bunch of money from selling your coral, but you're also going to have less chances of DOA and less things to bring over to the new setup. It's a win-win either way, right? So frag out, heal, sell as much as you possibly can, and then when you're transferring all your coral, make sure it's a stable water temperature wise to the new setup. Try to match that temperature as best that you can within a couple degrees, and then transfer that new setup, and you're good to go, right? Now, when it comes to fish, they're a little bit different. I always, even if I'm going 30 minutes away to a client, I always use a battery operated or an air pump that I can plug into the SUV. I always run air in either a bucket or a brute trash can, whatever they are in. I always run air because fish tend to use up the oxygen relatively quickly, especially when you got some bigger tanks. I know when we got rid of Big Bertha, she went in and had an air pump. Everything was good to go. No issues with that. Make sure you have an air pump, because last thing you want is the stress on top of not getting enough oxygen and then just kind of killing over or being so stressed out when they get to the new place that they don't adapt quick enough, and then they end up passing away. Saltwater fish are stupid expensive, and you know, on top of that, who wants to lose a fish you've had for years and years and years, right? So with that, fish also need stable temperature, so having an air pump and a heater in there is always going to be good. Fish can get away with the temperature fluctuations outside of what coral can get away with, but it's still a good idea to keep within a safe range, especially if you're in a really cold environment. You don't want to go from like 78 degrees and then be in a car that happens to, you know, get down to 50. That's probably not going to work out very well. They'll probably be fine because fish are, depending on how stressed they are and what they currently got going on health-wise, they tend to do quite well, but it's not really a risk you really have to take. A heater's relatively cheap, right? So we talked about livestock. Now let's talk about moving the tank. Couple rules here. Regardless of the size, bring a friend. Even if it's a 40-gallon, bring a friend. Like I mentioned, I tried to solo move my low boys. I ended up breaking 2 of them. It's just not worth it. Lining things up, getting them through the door, it just makes the setup and the transition already stressful, or even more stressful than it already is. So have a buddy or 2. Now, if you're getting into like bigger tanks, 125s, 150s, 200s, 300s, having several buddies, maybe some major equipment, some major large equipment, is going to be beneficial. Again, it's going to be depending on how big the setup is and where you're actually located. At the end of the day, making sure that the tank stays safe. It's not on like wobbly platforms. You got good people, strong people that can help move it, and you don't have to worry about it falling off the truck. So these are all things that are going to be, you know, situational. But, you know, every situation is going to be different. But overall, making sure your investment survives the transit is always good. And that's pretty much common sense, right? So with that, I'm trying to think anything else that I'm missing. We covered livestock, fish, transit. Yeah, setting up the new setup. That's pretty much it. Really just kind of, I would say if I was to take everything and I was going to put it down to if you had to do one thing, and that would be to set up a temporary setup, regardless of the size of the tank you have. Setting something temporary up is always the best option. It's just going to make the entire moving process 1,000 times easier. And yeah, that's what we want. Moving alone outside of a reef tank or outside of an aquarium is already stressful. Throw that into the mix. It's crazy. Now, one thing, food for thought, in the past, and I still do it, if people are relocating and they're relatively close to me, I will take their coral in, I will take their fish in, and I will hold them for them if they don't have the ability to do a setup or something like that. So if you have a buddy that can hold on to your stuff, even better. But not all of us have that option. So again, setting up a temporary setup is always the best. It is through and through. So with that, yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. If you have any questions, feel free to put that in the comment section. If I missed anything, put that in the comment section. People read that stuff. It's always good to help them out. Now, we are doing a 30% off sale on the website for the next week or so. I will put the code in the description as well as the comment section. It's only going to be for like a week. It's like an Easter, spring kind of sale. And we got a bunch of coral from the 300. It's growing out. I'll give you guys an update on that tank. It's doing very well, especially with this new method of just doing water changes, not really dosing anything, just feeding water changes and just letting the tank do its own thing. I'm going to do an ICP test here in the next month and kind of see where we're at. But outside of that, the tank is not only the easiest that it's ever been to run it, but it's also, the growth is just, I'm happy, especially those new Kessels, right? So with that, that's it for the video, guys. I appreciate you being here, and I will see you later. All right, peace.